Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second masterclass, AI tools built for building high-quality strategy decks 10 times faster. And we're going to essentially walk through the 9 best tools that every strategist and consultant should be using in order to get better quality strategy decks much faster. So let's dive right in. First off, I'm Jeffrey Davis. For those that haven't been in the first masterclass, I'm a business strategist who's done product strategy for McKinsey, digital transformation at IBM, and business transformation at a large organization called Magid Al-Futteh. And now I'm working on AI adoption, where I've done Gen AI rollout for billion-dollar clients. I'm the founder of Ascend AI, where we deliver AI for consultants and strategists. And I've built my own personal database of over 300 different prompts and agents that are helping me do things on a day-to-day basis. And the biggest reason why I'm able to talk about this topic today is I've built over 250 strategy decks and proposals over the 10 years. And now with my strategy experience and with everything I'm doing in AI, I've been able to use that to come up with the best tools, strategy, and methodologies that I am very happy to be sharing with you guys today. So let's start with a big thing that's on everyone's mind is there is way too many tools out there, and everyone essentially is on this big AI overload. You're seeing a new tool here, an article there, new revolution here, and it is hard to keep up with everything that's going on in the market today. No matter how smart, we are all busy, and because we're busy, we need someone or something to help us be able to filter through that information. So that's what this masterclass is about, is helping us filter through that information. So the biggest thing about this AI overload is it makes it very time consuming and laborious for all of us to find the right tools. There are thousands out there. We don't know which tools to use when that are actually going to be the best for the task that we need to do. And it takes way too much time to pick up and learn a new tool when I have clients and my partner breathing down my neck. So we're going to walk through the 9 tools for strategists that I believe are going to be best fitted. And I'll go through use cases for every single one in terms of how I feel like we can best use them in today's world. And we'll continue to update this as we go along. Now, to start, Copilot, which isn't anyone, I think's favorite AI tool, but it actually has an amazingly surprising ability is that everyone almost has access to it, especially if you're in a corporate environment or if you're in a consultancy firm that is essentially dealing with clients. Everyone is going to be on the Microsoft environment. Now, Copilot off the box sometimes is a little bit slow, might ask you too many questions, but it has one magic thing is that it has access to all of either the client data that you guys have, or it's got access to all of your data that your company has. Now, one of the magic things I think it has is actually the ability to extract transcripts. Now, everyone can do a quick summary to say, hey, what was the meeting? Send me a quick email, whatever. But if we're thinking about this as a strategist, what is the output that I actually need once I hang up that phone call? What's the brief that I need to create? What are the requirements gatherings that I need to do? What's the feedback that I actually need to collect that I can turn into user stories? These are the things that we can actually start to pull from Copilot that a lot of people aren't using. So let's walk through the first use case of how we can do this. The biggest one that I think by far, especially if you're dealing with clients or if you're dealing with your boss and you need to pull things in, is creating briefs from the conversations you're having. Whether it's in passing or whether it's you need to be moving forward on a long 2-hour call, you want to be able to extract what is the most important information that I can actually take from this call. And you creating your own project brief prompt that you can just paste into Copilot, and then it'll spit you out a well-structured project brief that'll deliver you the stakeholders who are involved, the business goals that are needed, the success metrics they care about, the timeline and scope. It takes way too much time for you to try to do this after a call, and it's almost impossible to do, and you have to end up setting up a second meeting because half the people forgot what the main point of that conversation or what everything that was discussed in there. So now you can extract that information into a format that matters that you can then email or send to anyone involved. There's a quick AI workflow that I'll talk about from there where you can open any transcript that obviously comes through, generate that brief from Copilot, and then you can easily share that with anyone with Outlook. So it works within the Microsoft ecosystem in a really well way. Now, the second thing that I'll talk about is around gathering requirements. This is one of the biggest things I'm working on a strategy project, or if I'm working on building a strategy deck, I need to essentially get all the information from stakeholders, different interviews, whoever it might be. And it's going to be really important that I'm collecting the best information that I can. But if I'm just using tools outside, for example, ChatGPT or Claude, I can't take that information that I had from my client and put it into those kind of platforms. I need to put it into a safe environment, which is where Copilot is able to edge out against other tools because it's in a safe environment. It's within Microsoft. Everyone's happy and feels safe for me to be able to use it. So I can get my research summaries. I can get analysis of my stakeholder interviews. I can get customer forces canvases, which is tell me what are the kind of points that people want to buy. And this all can be done from just creating your own special prompts that deliver each of those outputs and can scan a transcript and then turn them into structured outputs like you see here. And it's the same workflow for that. Open any transcript, create a stakeholder interview prompt in terms of extracting the correct information that you want, and then go ahead and save those into your SharePoint so you can always have them for reference. And if anybody needs them, you know you have them, and you can then analyze that entire SharePoint folder later down the line to get insights and anything else you might need, right? So that's Copilot. Now let's move on to number 2, which is actually 2 and 3. Now I put Claude and Perplexity together because I think both of these are really the best for when you need to actually do validated research. Now, Anthropic, as we know, they built Claude, and they have something really amazing for you to actually be able to do large context windows. Now, what that really means is that I can dump more information into Claude than I can in ChatGPT, or I can into Copilot, or lots of other tools. So it allows for me to have lots of really great information for me to be able to work within. The second thing is I've got Perplexity. And this one is really amazing for actually being able to search for relevant information. I can go in there, scrape a bunch of information from the internet. I can verify it, read all those sources, and I can look and see what was the thought process behind it. Now, this is really going to be good when you start to think about how can I create my own research assistants inside of Claude and or Perplexity, which you can then combine your personal data or client's data with the information that you're getting externally from Perplexity and Claude when you're doing desk research. So let's dive into that use case a little bit more. So on the right-hand side here, you're going to see how Perplexity really grabs all the sources, and I can then read and feel all those. So let's say if I was doing a market analysis on Labubu's as an example, I want to be able to see what is all the information that's going to be relevant. I want to make sure I can fact check each one of those articles, because we know that no matter which tool you're using, it's hard to verify every piece of data that we're getting. So using a tool like Perplexity, which is grabbing the best sources, but you always need to watch out for bias, because some of the sources might be from a marketing channel, maybe from a LinkedIn writer. How can we make sure that we're validating that information? And that can also happen with doing a little validation prompt to say, please double check that, please cross-reference. And a lot of people I know, they actually use Claude and Perplexity, and then they'll use another tool to cross-reference all the information to see which is most valid and what's the best in terms of the confidence score, the insights they're going to pull from there. But what I would recommend for everyone is there's a couple things that we know we always need to be doing when it comes to doing a strategy or a strategy deck. You're going to be looking at your competitor analysis, benchmarks, target audience, industry trends, and regulation. What are the laws that I need to follow within this space? Make sure you create yourself these 5 prompts so that you always have them, put them in your back pocket, and you can put them out every single time. Refine it as you go forward to make sure you get the best results, but do not start from scratch every single time. Start to build your own database of prompts, and that's how you're going to get ahead. Now, let's move into number 4. Notebook LM. So this was created by Google. So if anyone's on Google Drive or Google Business, I think you get this as part of the bonus as well for the AI stack. But what you're able to do with this is, if you're on Google, this is already a safe environment for you to be able to analyze client information at scale. And it does it in a really, really beautiful way. So the way that Notebook LM works is it'll allow you to upload any number of sources, from audio files, transcripts, databases, Excel sheets, whatever it might be. And what they specialize in is translating all that information with what's called Notebook Studio into 6 different outputs. That means I can take 100 different transcripts like I've got here from interviews and turn them into an audio podcast that's going to be able to relate back to me what the key insights and problems are. I can get it to deliver me a video series that I can then watch and go through for each one of the videos or documents I uploaded. And I can even get it to create me a mind map of all the information and data that's there. And this is a completely new way to be able to look through data and insights, especially qualitative data, which is normally so hard to be able to pull information from. I can also get it to generate reports, like the normal standard ones you see with either ChatGPT or anything like that, but flashcards, quizzes for educational stuff. But those four at top, those ones are the ones that we care about for doing strategy work. Now, how else can we use this for building your own insights repository, making sure that you can synthesize multiple sources in one place? You can be able to connect your internal data that you've got with external research that you've done. So if you've done that market research on Claude or Perplexity, you can add that in here. Or you can see at the top there, there's a discover where it'll go and bring in research that's relevant to you and pull it back in. Yeah. So let's go into the use case a little bit deeper on this one. Now, how I would be using this is I would think about this as my document repository, right? For me to be able to analyze all of my research. So when you think about it, you want to be able to upload your client documents, your stakeholders, your interviews, your data, your dashboard information, your desk research, AI research you've done. You want everything to be on there, because then you're going to be able to organize it and essentially rip out the best pieces of information possible. Now, like I said, you're able to mind maps, but what I would even start to think about more specifically is, what do I already need in order for me to deliver on the strategy? Yes, it's great for me to dump stuff, but I need to simplify that down anyways. So what's the framework that I'm going to use? So for me, I would upload those documents, and then I would think about these four elements that are going to be most important. You want to essentially build a prompt that is going to extract the information that you need for themes across all the information, problems that are going to get identified, opportunities that are there, and are there any relevant numbers? Maybe people have mentioned the same thing 80% of the time. Maybe there are some great numbers that people mention, because those are going to be the things that when you need to put together your strategy, you're going to need that evidence to back it up. So 100% think about those themes, problems, opportunities, and numbers that are then going to be help you find your solutions and support the strategy that you come up with. So now let's move on to number 5, ChatGPT. Let's say it's the one that started it all, but as we know, it's the one that is the easiest to use and gets you the basics of what you need. Now, when it comes to ChatGPT, I wouldn't trust it 100%, even with deep research, for actually doing deep research for things that you really need, or trying to verify sources. It's not where its expertise is. It's going for breadth. But what it is quite interestingly good at is thinking creatively and also strategically with you for to think about things that you've already supplied it. So turning ChatGPT into almost your sidekick or your assistant to be able to work with you hand in hand as you work through a strategy, that is actually a really great use case. And the one that I'll talk about here in more depth is when I've done my research and then I've collected all my insights. The reality is I now need a narrative and a story to tell that is going to be able to get clients to say, yes, that is exactly what I wanted. You listened to the brief, you did the research, and you showed me the supporting evidence. So how do we take all that evidence, all those insights, all those things we have, and then turn it into a narrative that really matters? That's where I think ChatGPT is actually ahead of the game. So one of the things you can do that, and it depends on how you're using it, but I'll tell you how I use it to help me draft a narrative. So I use it to help me translate all that complex research into a compelling, easy to understand narrative, right? So there are a couple different storytelling frameworks that exist, right? Whether that's for strategy, business, or general creating movies, whatever it might be. One of them is SEQA, situation, conflict, question, answer. There's the pyramid principle, the hero's journey, where you go from beginning, end, the hero leaves and comes back. The Pixar storytelling, which is once upon a time, XYZ, or problem, this you don't like that you have this problem, and then solution. Now, with any of these storytelling frameworks, if you can couple that with your strategy and the insights, it'll essentially turn it into an outline for you to be able to fill out that you can then turn into slides after. So here on the right-hand side, you'll see that I've got a template that I've essentially created that is going to be based off of one of these storytelling things. And you can see there's a couple slots for me to fill in to either like, this is the job to be done, this was the old way, this is how the market changed, Here's a pain point, and here's a desirable outcome and the consequence if we don't move forward. What this allows you to do is to actually see the way everyone else is going to see your presentation in the simplest way. Now, you're using ChatGPT and a quick workflow to be able to, one, if you haven't already, extract all those themes, problems, and opportunities, convert those into insights for you to start to tell that story. And then I would go one step further than what you're looking at here, which is to help you generate the headlines and subheadlines for the presentation deck that you're going to have. So when you really think about how most people will read a strategy deck, especially if it's a pre-read not being presented to them, is first you're going to read all of the headlines just to get a gist of the story that is being told. So that's really the thing that you want to focus on most. And you want to go back and forth with ChatGPT to really help you craft the best narrative possible, even asking it to judge based on X, Y, and Z, building your own criteria or the criteria that the client has asked. So you could go back to your brief as an example that you obviously scraped from your transcript. And then you could bring that back and you could say, hey, please make sure I've covered all the items on this brief. Same thing if you had a market research brief created, you could say, hey, did I answer all the questions for my market research brief? And at that point, you've got everything you need and you would have ticked all your boxes to be like, cool, I can now move forward and start to move into presentation for this. So let's think about number 6. Figma Slides. Now, for those that might be strategists or maybe consultants and don't deal in digital transformation, you may not be familiar with Figma. But Figma is a design tool that's essentially used to build websites, applications, and user interfaces across the globe. The tool is massive. It essentially took over from Adobe. And what they've now created is something called Figma Slides. So if you're already someone who's been using Figma, this is a great, easy transition to get into. If you're someone who deals with designers or normally has to hand off presentations to someone else to design and clean up, this is an easy handover process for them as well. Now, one of the things that Figma has allowed us to do that's a little bit different than when you're dealing with PowerPoint, Keynote, or any other presentation tool is it works similar to a canvas, like you would have on a Miro or Mural if you're in corporate, where you can essentially put all your different canvases around and you can actually put your notes, write things, add links all around the canvas. So you can move things around in a non-linear fashion, which when you're thinking about doing strategy and trying to deliver stuff, not everything is a straight line. And even here with the basic structure of being able to just see the story go from top down and left to right is a little bit different than how you might normally be using your PowerPoint slides on a day-to-day basis. Now, one of the things that Figma has started to look into is, like most tools, how can I get you to the first draft? Now, a lot of us would use online tools to run workshops like Miro and Mural, but Figma has their own tool called FigJam. And what they've started to do is you can take all of those insights from your Miro board, from all the workshops you've had, you can grab it. It'll analyze all the information in there. So it'll pull out all the insights, themes, problems, opportunities for you. Then it'll turn it into an outline for your presentation deck. And the final thing it does is then you select the template, and then it'll say, cool, I'm going to take all of those insights, all that information, and then it's going to create a modular set of slides for you to be able to use. Now, whether you're using Figma or whether you're using PowerPoint or whether you're using any other tool, the biggest thing that you really want to make sure you're considering when you're getting to that first draft, and you're also judging these tools to decide which one is going to be best for you, you want to think about, is it delivering me my presentation outline the way that I would expect or a client expects me to have it? Did it include any of the strategic insights that I actually needed, or I placed on my board, or I placed in the document I sent it? Did it make sure it had a key message per slide? And I just don't mean a quick list of bullets, but did it have the numbers, the charts, all those things that were important? And did it actually pull any of the evidence that I really needed from all the data I had, or do I still have to do all that stuff manually? Because if it's not delivering on those items, then it's not really giving you the end result you're looking for. But not all the tools are there yet, but we're there and we're kind of starting to move things forward. So I'm excited for where things are going. Now, let's move on to number 7. Gamma. So this was one of the very first presentation tools that came out of the gate. They've even changed their brand a few times. But one of the things that they focused on when they first began was just taking you from ugly slides to pretty slides. Now they're moving from you being able to put in a quick prompt to getting a full outline to then being able to get your design slides as you move forward. Now, an interesting thing that they've done as a choice is they've actually moved away from the word slides and are now calling them cards, because they can build them a little bit more dynamic and they can expand beyond just delivering slides, but infographics and other things like that. I think they're even doing it for like websites and other things. Now, the thing that we care about in terms of how to use Gamma for building strategy decks or strategy in general is going to help you automate that visual design. You can upload a Word document and then it'll create slides from there. And this is a massive use case where I've talked to many strategists, and a lot of people do a lot of their work on the side where they'll essentially build out a massive notes. I build mine in Notion. Some people build theirs in Word. Some people just build them in the notes app on their computer. And from there, they have a massive dump of all the strategy, information, data, insights that they've got. And then they need some place to put that. Normally, you have to do that manually. On Gamma, you can, even if you didn't use the design, take that, put it in here, and then get a really good outline of what your presentation could look like. Then you could take it out, deliver it on your side, give it to a designer, whatever you need to do. But it's a great place to also get your first draft. Now, when we think about the designing of the slides, Gamma does a pretty good job of cleaning up a Word document and putting it into a structured presentation slide. I would say it's one of the best in terms of actually dynamically structuring the information for it to be actually valuable. So for example, if there was a point that actually had 3 points, it will break the slide into those 3 points. If I need to actually have information on the left and a visual, it will break that information up. If I had 3 or 4 points, it'll make sure the content is dynamically moving. So you get pretty close to the visual style, or at least the structure of what it was going for. If they promised me a wireframe or just an outline instead of a full design, I would give them a 10 out of 10 for delivering me the outline and the structure that I could pass off to a designer, or I could put into my company's template 100%. Now, when you're using these tools to actually design the slides, there's a couple things that you want to consider in order for you to go 100% or get to 90%. I don't think anyone's going to take you all the way. You want to make sure you've already got your branded templates, whether that's the client's branded template or your template that you're using for your own company. Make sure you have that on hand, because you're 100% still going to translate it into that later on. The other thing is data visualizations. You need to be thinking about what it is that you want the visuals to actually look like, because none of these AI tools are really great yet, are saying this is the exact visual data item that you need in order to really bring this to life. And we can create a couple prompts that can help you get there, but the tools yet, they haven't nailed it. So, and also you want to think about, cool, for photos and images, what are the ones that you need so that you can put that information in terms of the style, the aesthetic, and everything you need so that you can start to put things forward. And I would also, same as when you're designing a website or you're building something, you need benchmarks, but you also need slide inspiration. So whether it's from old presentations that you have or presentations that you're getting from a template database or anything like that, make sure you have a bank of slide inspiration so you can start to reference what's going to be good and not good for you, and you have the right way to actually judge these tools. But in terms of a quick AI workflow for these to actually deliver, you can draft your entire storyline and narrative in a Word document, get ChatGPT to clean it up, or you can upload it directly into Gamma, and it'll take all that information. And like you see here, it will generate you the slides, and they won't be far off from what you're looking for in the very end, especially if you don't do heavy detailed consultancy slides on a day-to-day basis. Now, let's move on to number 8, Midjourney. So this is one that I'm sure most people know about. It was obviously in the very big case for delivering images. But I want us to think about this not only as images, but how do we use this when we're thinking about the narrative and the story that we need to tell? One of the things, if you guys haven't been visual or design people beforehand, is there's a lot of metaphors that allow us to actually tell stories and actually be able to get our message across much easier. So how do we actually use Midjourney or AI images to help us craft that narrative much better? Because it doesn't always have to be a direct translation. I just have to get the emotion or the feeling across. And as long as that's seen, then people are like, okay, cool, the visual has helped me do that. So you're not always looking for one visual. You might be looking for a bunch of visuals, or you may be looking for things that just fit the style and aesthetic of what you're trying to do. So if you look at the images I got on the right-hand side, these might add a lot of color to a brand that's got similar color palette to this, and it might be really interesting to be able to see. I can also, if I needed to, create custom icons to have things a little bit more interesting, have stuff pop, or I could be looking into how I can display the future with whatever metaphors we think are important, from AI becoming big and bad, or it being the savior, or whatever that might be. But all of these visuals are metaphors or ways for us to easily translate our message. So always think about what is the message, and then think about what's the visual I need to convey that message. And if you're not able to do that, one of the things that I think about as a quick AI workflow for this is you can use ChatGPT to ask, what is the metaphor or visual metaphor that would help me represent this? And sometimes it won't be a slide. It could just be a cheetah or a tiger to say that things are crazy, or a lady screaming to say that things are really tiresome, or they're upset, or thinking people are overwhelmed. All these visuals help tell your story as long as it's on point with your message, whether that is to double NOPAT, whether that's to see how we can drive return on investment of new products, whatever that's going to be, there's going to be a visual that'll help you tell that story. Now, just a couple things to think about when we're dealing with those visual prompts. Include your brand guidelines, include any image references, think about the style and aesthetic that you want them in, whether you need like a pop art style, whether you need it to be professional, whatever that's going to be. Already consider the color palette, so you're not getting things that are way outside of your the vein of what you actually need. And always think about what are the metaphors that will represent this. Big, small, fast, slow, all those things are going to help you. Now, let's move on to number 9, our last on the list, which is Oxy. So Oxy is one of the tools that I actually first found when I started looking into AI tools that were dealing with strategists and consultancy work. And this is essentially a PowerPoint plugin, similar to ThinkCell or some of these other ones. But they've got a really nice twist where, similar to anyone that uses a Mac, they have a action bar. So the Oxy bar essentially allows you to quickly type in anything you might need, whether it's inserting a picture, a chart, aligning something to the left or to the right. So I use Oxy to really think about when I need to be reviewing and refining all of my information. This is there for the cleanup. You've already done your research. You've already defined your insights. You got everything you need in terms of your presentation, and now you're at the last stretch and you need to make sure your spelling is correct. You got all the right information. You need to shorten a couple sentences. Maybe you need to rephrase some stuff. Oxy's great for that last minute cleanup and doing it as fast as possible. Love the action bar, love how it's easy to use, and I think it's going to be a big help to everyone. I think in terms of quick workflows, helping you reformat, rewrite, and essentially change things across slides is where Oxy really makes the difference. So these are the 9 AI tools that we think every strategist should have. Now, I think there's a big question that everyone is asking us after we present these is, how do we actually use all of these tools together, right? You've told me, hey, Jeffrey, I can use all these different tools. There's so much out there, but this isn't helpful to me. I don't want to subscribe to 9 different tools to get the outcome I'm looking for. So what we've started to do is we've created the Ascend method for how you can actually be using this. And we've been interviewing consultants, strategists across the board to try to figure out how everyone is using AI and to figure out what are the most critical points at which you can be using it. And now you can kind of see very simply, these are the elements that we think AI is best at when it comes to delivering from brief to slides in your strategy deck. When it comes to the brief, as I said before, you want to think about how you can generate your strategy your research briefs from transcripts. So if you know that you need to be doing research and you know you need to figure out this is exactly what I want to deliver for my strategy, use that as a checklist that now you can create a prompt that'll extract all that information. Perfect. Second thing you want to do is now for all the research that you're doing, you want to make sure you create yourself those 5 different prompts that I mentioned, from one that does market research, one that looks into target customers, the other one that looks into industry trends, one that's looking into legal, The other one that's looking into benchmarks and best practices, because every project you have to do these 5. There's no project where I don't end up having to do them. So create the 5 prompts that'll help you deliver that. Then you're going to get the insights. So you're going to get all of these extracts from research you've uploaded, information you have, all this kind of document you have. And the thing that you really are always going to have to do is extract the correct insights from that information. Now, I've talked to lots of people, and it really boils down to these 4 key ones. What are the themes, problems, opportunities, and numbers? Those are the things that are really, you need to pull from every piece of document you have. So when you have AI and it needs to analyze across to understand what's the most relevant information, how confident can it be that it's extracting the right insights, keep it simple, help your AI out, extract this information. Then once you have these elements, themes, problems, opportunities, and numbers, you have everything you need to be able to build a narrative, because you'll have all the supporting evidence, you have all the insights, and you have the key storytelling points that you can put together. And like I said, use proven methods for delivering strategy decks, whether that's SCQA, pyramid method, or for storytelling, the hero's journey, Pixar story format. Choose things that people know, can recognize, and understand. And it's not that you have to say once upon a time, but that's just saying old way was this, right? And then you're moving through that narrative in the business structured manner as a professional would. So make sure you create some of those narrative templates for you to be able to create the right responses there. And finally, you get the slides. Now, there's a bunch of these tools out here that are creating slides and doing everything, but when it all comes down to it, it's got to end up back in PowerPoint. Now, we're all waiting for PowerPoint to give us the answer we're looking for, but I think still getting us all the way up to point 4 and switching into PowerPoint once I have my headlines, I have my information, my data, and then getting PowerPoint to just do a quick draft for you is still going to be the best bet today. But you can do a lot of information and gather a lot of stuff by actually building a prompt that'll extract that narrative, extract those insights, extract that research and that brief, and put together a really beautiful slide outline with all the content, evidence, etc., that you need to deliver the last bit. Now, what we're doing at Ascend is not just putting together this methodology, but we're also putting together a platform that's going to be able to help you go through that entire strategy workflow much faster. So the platform that we're building, you're already going to be able to upload a transcript and extract a brief. You're going to be able to upload your research that you've done, data that you've got, and you'll be able to send an AI to go grab you more research. Then we're going to be able to have insights that essentially is going to check across the brief, the research, the documents you uploaded, and pull those themes, problems, opportunities out for you so that you can review them. And finally, we've already built in the story narratives, the strategy, all those things that then give you an outline for you to say, yes, that is exactly what I want. And finally, we draft the slides for you to get everything you need from those headlines, those supporting headlines, to evidence, to the basics of the charts, for everything you need to be able to deliver those slides and get you to a first draft. Nobody's going to promise you perfect, but we're here to get you 80% of the way there. So I want to thank you guys all so much. I'll open up for Q&A, and then I'll let you guys go. Thanks everyone for joining. Okay, question 1. A lot of people in the IT sector talking to me about Notebook LM, but I'm currently using my main AI to do this like Claude. Is that much better to justify adding another tool to my stack? So I think it's going to depend on how exactly you're using Claude, but I'm going to assume you're talking about uploading all the data and information into projects and then having Claude pull it. What I would actually say is much better that Claude does, or that Notebook LM does that other people does, is it's got a much larger context window to pull information. When you're working with Claude, it has a limited context window and it actually deletes your information and not deletes, but it makes you essentially start a new chat, which can be exceptionally frustrating, especially for strategists like us who need to be doing deep work. We just can't be diving in very casually to get work done. Okay, moving on to question 2. On average, how many tools are being combined together based on the consultants you're talking to? Great question. So I would say on average, I think people are using around 3 to 4 different tools and they're paying for them. And I'd probably say from the people that I'm talking to, they've got whatever tool they have in their main stack, which means like the one that's a company approved. And then they're probably using 3 other tools outside of that to be able to deliver the outcomes they're looking for all those different steps I talked about. Question 3, we are being restricted on AI tools we can use internally. Now, which of these are a fit for adoption within firms for teamwork and compliance? So I think the first tool I mentioned is still going to be your best bet when you're working internally, because there's still a lot of work that can be done inside of Copilot, which I'm going to assume is your tool of choice for that if you're in a corporate environment. What makes a big difference from the results that Copilot gives you versus anything else is the prompts that you put in. And now they have Copilot agents, so you can actually start to have things a little bit more specific. The other thing is you just have to be way more task oriented with Copilot than you are with something like ChatGPT or Claude, which is able to take a lot more information and pull things in a little bit differently. Because it's got the restrictions it does, because it's a corporate tool, it doesn't pull as much as you would like normally or what you're getting from the other results. But you can drag it out of there if you have the correct prompts, structuring, and guidelines to be able to put that together. Let me know if any other questions from anyone.